Hello, my name is Charles Webster Bear, and today is December 31st, 2020, and I am at Mirror Pond in Drake Park on the Deschutes River in downtown Bend, Oregon, USA, Earth. And my website is globalinternetgovernment.com. And today I want to talk about a lot of different stuff. But let's start with the universe. So, we're going to begin today with this universe, the one we're in, this known universe, the one we know about, this physical universe. We're not going to get into non-physical universes today, or maybe we will. So, we're going to talk first about this known physical universe, which deserves a name, I think, to differentiate it from the other ones, but I digress. So anyway, this universe was created 15 billion years ago, or this universe increased in size to a point where humans could comprehend it 15 billion years ago. Either way, 15 billion years ago, this universe was an energy plasma. An energy plasma that was made up of dark matter and dark energy. And as this dark matter and dark energy expanded, it cooled and formed quantum particles, such as bosons and leptons and photons and neutrinos and quarks. And as this energy plasma of quantum particles continued to expand and cool, it formed subatomic particles like electrons and neutrons and protons. And as this energy plasma of subatomic particles continued to expand and cool, it formed hydrogen atoms. And these hydrogen atoms continued to expand and cool, and they formed clouds of hydrogen because gravity acted upon them. And gravity continued to act upon them and created fission and fusion, and this created the stars. And the stars created the other elements. 5 billion years ago, our star, the sun, was created, and the leftovers were the planets, and they orbited the sun. And the Earth was a blob of lava which cooled and formed the crust, and then gas escaped and formed the ocean. And then 4 billion years ago, due to random chemical reactions, life was created in the bacteria, and bacteria reproduced and mutated and evolved into algae, which used photosynthesis to make the atmosphere, and this algae mutated and evolved to form plants in the ocean and then plants on the land. And then these plants evolved into fish, which evolved into reptiles, which evolved into mammals, which evolved into monkeys, which evolved into apes, which evolved into humans, which evolved into robots, which evolved into a more advanced silicon-based form of life, which continued to evolve and advance and eventually colonized the rest of the galaxy and the rest of the universe. The end. Thank you very much. That's the history of this known physical universe. So let's back up 3 million years ago. 3 million years ago, us, Homo sapiens, evolved from Homo erectus in South Africa. And we eventually made it through the jungle And about 100,000 years ago, humans left Africa through Egypt and colonized the planet. And about 10,000 years ago, you see different cultures and societies all over Earth, farming, domestication of animals, agriculture, language, customs and rituals. And then about 2,500 years ago, what you see is advanced forms of society and advanced forms of civilization, including Greece. And 2,500 years ago, the Greeks created what became the basis for Western civilization, and what still is the basis for Western civilization. And that was democracy and science and philosophy and theater and all this other stuff, mathematics, etc., etc. And then the Italians borrowed heavily from that and took that to Europe. And then you had the Middle Ages, the Dark Ages, and the Renaissance, and the technology and the Industrial Revolution in America and all that. So that was 2,500 years ago in Greece. At around the same time, 2,500 years ago in India, there was some dude named Buddha, and he got all philosophical. And he was like, when I'm dreaming, I don't know I'm dreaming. Why is that? And so he thought about it. And he figured out that your thoughts exist, but that's all you know. The universe may or may not be an illusion. If the universe is an illusion, then you can't be part of the universe because it's an illusion. So what are you? You're the soul. But if the universe is not an illusion and it's real, then you're part of the universe and that's it. It's one or the other. So that's what Buddha realized. And this information headed east to China. And the Chinese were sophisticated and intelligent enough to understand it, and they created Buddhism. This information also went west to the Middle East, where they weren't sophisticated and intelligent enough to understand it, and they misinterpreted it twice. The first time was called Christianity, and the second time was called Islam. And many shenanigans ensued. And so that was a good time for everybody. And so anyway, that was that. So now we're back to America being created. And America's like, yeah, freedom, democracy, equality, etc. That's all good stuff. So we were like, yeah, rock on. Then there were a few wars. And then there was the 1960s and the 1970s. And in the 1960s and the 1970s, a bunch of intelligent people started talking about the concept of environmentalism. And they talked about it, and they talked about it, and they talked about it. And they came to the conclusion that it's a bad idea to kill the planet Earth, and so we need to not kill the planet Earth. And the only way to accomplish that is by reducing the number of people on the planet Earth. And this was called depopulationism. Now in America, we decided to make that optional. In China, they decided to make that mandatory. Well, the Chinese were correct, and the West was incorrect. This is something that needs to be mandatory, not optional. But unfortunately, outside of China, it was optional, and outside of China, people chose the kill Earth option. And so now we've killed Earth. And so that's unfortunate. So let's talk about depopulationism. Let's talk about what it is. What is depopulationism? What is a depopulationist? Well, I'm a depopulationist, and I've been a depopulationist for the last 35 years. And I've been talking about depopulationism for the last 35 years. And I'll continue to talk about depopulationism. In fact, I'll talk about it right now. Depopulationism, the mandatory, correct version, the Chinese version, was created by the Chinese government in the 1980s. It's also known as the one woman, one child policy. Depopulationists like myself feel that it is illegal and immoral for anyone to reproduce more than once in this millennium. Okay, what we want to do is we want to create a significant and sustained and immediate decline in the human population on Earth. Right? This will allow the number of people to decrease and eventually arrive at a sustainable level. And that is a number for future generations to determine, but I'm going to go ahead and guess it's 2 or 3 billion people. This will allow the environment to heal, and this will allow for more trees to grow back. And then in the future, when people want to breathe oxygen, they'll be able to do that because there'll be enough trees to make enough oxygen for people to breathe, and then we won't all suffocate to death. And that's a good thing. And that's depopulationism. It's actually very simple. It's like, okay, there's enough people on the planet. I don't need to make any more people. I'm not going to make any more people. That's depopulationism. Okay, right now, the number of people on the planet is going up. It's increasing. That's the wrong direction. That's the suicide course. Humans do not have the right to kill the planet. Humans do not have the right to threaten the planet. Humans do not have the right to kill the environment. Humans do not have the right to threaten the environment. Okay, intelligent people understand this. Stupid people need to learn this now. That's depopulationism. And it's time for Americans to stand up and lead by example. It's time for Americans, and especially Oregonians, to save the planet. And the only fair and rational way to do that, according to me, is depopulationism. That's my opinion. I may be wrong, but that's what I've been saying for the last 35 years, and that's what I'm going to continue to say for the rest of my life. Yeah, so that's depopulationism. Okay, so how do we accomplish this? Depopulationism is the goal. How do we achieve this goal? What's the plan? Well, the plan is Global Internet Government, or GIG, which I created in the year 2000 in Portland, Oregon. GIG is a world government, and GIG is going to unite the planet Earth politically and economically. GIG is going to provide all human beings with a platform to contribute to and participate in the world government. GIG is going to be an interactive environment for everybody to learn about and talk about what's happening, with them politically, in their area, and globally. GIG is going to unite the world politically and economically. GIG is going to unite the world politically by working with the United Nations to achieve equality and democracy and freedom and reproductive rights for all human beings right now. Reproductive rights means that all people have the right to total and free access to all forms of birth control, including abortion. Any government that does not completely and totally support this 100% is an illegitimate government. Illegitimate governments will be replaced quickly and peacefully by legitimate governments. GIG is going to unite the planet economically by working with the International Monetary Fund to bring transparency and trade agreements and balanced budget amendments to everybody. GIG is going to monitor and make public every financial transaction by every government on Earth immediately online. So everybody can see where all the money's going, who's getting it, who they got it from, when they got it, how much they got, what they're doing with it, etc. So that's GIG. GIG is inevitable. GIG's already happened. It's just a question of, how far can we go and how fast can we get there? Because right now we're way behind schedule. So we need to pick it up. And hopefully we'll get there soon enough, because if we get there too late, it's game over. So that's GIG. So now I want to talk about FogBank. FogBank is my cyber currency that I created last year. Now, FogBank has a unit of currency called the FogBuck, F-O-G-B-U-K. Plural, FogBucks, F-O-G-B-U-X. Now, anybody, anywhere can buy as many FogBucks as they want for 1 penny a FogBuck. There's also a FogBic, F-O-G-B-I-K, FogBics, plural, F-O-G-B-I-X. Now, a FogBuck is something somebody purchases from FogBank for 1 cent. A FogBic is something FogBank gives to you. And FogBank is going to give everybody on the planet 10,000 FogBics right now. Boom! You're welcome. Now, the value of a FogBuck and a FogBic is completely identical. It's always the same. Okay? Now, the value of a FogBuck and a FogBic is always the same. Right now it's 0, and it'll fluctuate from 0, and it'll go up as high as it goes, and then it'll go back down to 0, and then it'll go back up, and it'll go up and down and up and down. That's the nature of cyber currency. The value fluctuates. So it'll start at 0, it'll go up, it'll go back down to 0, it'll stay at 0, it'll go back up, blah, blah, blah. That's the value of a FogBuck. And the value of a FogBuck and a FogBic is always the same. Now, FogBank reserves the right to suspend or terminate any FogBic at any time for any reason, including no reason at all. However, if you buy a FogBuck, that's yours forever until you spend it. Now, every FogBuck has its own individual unique FogBuck number. Every FogBic has its own individual unique FogBic number. Every FogBank user has its own individual FogBank user number, and every FogBank transaction has its own individual FogBank transaction number. This is all 100% transparent, and everybody everywhere can see where all the FogBucks and all the FogBics are at all the time. And so you can go to any unit of currency at any time and see its entire history, where it started, what it did, where it went, where it is, etc. So it's all 100% transparent. Okay? So if you don't like transparency, stay away from FogBank, stay away from global internet government. If you do like transparency, well then that's for you. Okay, so that's FogBank. FogBank is the new currency. It's the new international currency. It's going to replace all other currencies. Eventually, there'll only be one currency, and that's FogBank, because it's the latest evolution in money. Money's always evolving and improving, and then FogBank is just the latest part of that. Government's always evolving and improving, and gig is just the latest part of that. People are always evolving and improving, and depopulationism is just the latest development in that. And I'm always improving and getting better and evolving. And the latest part of that is that I'm running for mayor of Redmond, Oregon in 22 and president of the United States of America in 24 and 28. Please vote for me. I'm running as a libertarian. And that means that I am for more freedom and less government. I'm a libertarian. That means I'm socially liberal and fiscally conservative, okay? I'm a libertarian. That means I bring the best from the Republican Party, less government, and the best from the Democratic Party, more freedom. So please vote for me for mayor of Redmond, Oregon, USA in 22, and please vote for me for president of the United States of America in 24 and 28. As a libertarian and as a depopulationist. Thank you. I'm for the death penalty, Texas style. I'm for the legalization of all drugs. I'm for the legalization of suicide. I'm for negative immigration, which means I think the number of people leaving America should be greater than the number of people coming into America. I'm for less government, which means that if I'm president, I will veto any budget that's more than the last budget. Every budget will have to be less than the last budget, or I'll veto it. I'm an isolationist, which means I think that other nations can take care of their own problems, and America's not going to get involved unless it's totally supported by the UN and totally supported militarily and financially by all the nations of the region in question. So, that's that. So we've discussed the universe, and it's a good universe. And we've discussed depopulationism, and that's a good thing. We've discussed gig, that's really a good thing too. We've discussed FogBank, and that's a good thing too. And we've discussed me, Charles Webster Bear. I'm 51 years old, I'm single, I'm straight, I've never been married, I don't have any kids. I'm a Buddhist, I'm an agnostic. I was born and raised in Santa Cruz, California, and I went to high school in Newport, Rhode Island. And in 1994, I graduated from college from the University of Hawaii at Hilo on the Big Island. And in 1995, I moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico. And in 1999, I moved to Portland, Oregon. And in 2000, I created Global Internet Government. And in 2007, I moved to Bend, Oregon. And in 2014, I moved to China for 3 years. And in 2019, I created FogBank and moved to Redmond. Now it's 2020, and tomorrow will be 2021. So please have a great new year. Happy New Year. I'm sure 21 is going to be a great year. And, you know, depopulationism is my religion, and I'm preaching my religion, depopulationism. And I'm preaching my government gig, and I'm preaching my cash flow, which is now our cash flow, fog bank. And I'm preaching, you know, my politics. I'm preaching. Preach. Testify. And I think it's time for all these things in 21. I think 21 is the year where we finally get going as a species and turn it around and start being part of the solution instead of start being part of the problem. You know, humans have been the problem now for decades, and it's time for us to grow up and start being part of the solution. And so that's my message. And I think in 21, I think that's what we'll do. So please join me and become a depopulationist and vote only for people who publicly state they're depopulationists, and run for public office as a depopulationist, and share this video and make your own video. Make your own video where you talk about these subjects and you talk about these topics. It's time for you to get involved. It's time for you to stand up and say, hey, this is the deal. This is where it's at. So you should do that. Do that in 21. It's never too late. So, again, my name is Charles Webster Bear. I'm in Bend, Oregon, USA. Today is December 31, 2020. My website is globalinternetgovernment.com. And adios, amigos.